Thanks, Shelley. This is Ned Johnson, and as Shelley mentioned, I am from GTB. And just a little bit of background about myself. I've got about 15 years of project management experience, and about 12 of those years are with agency project management. And I was, very, passionate when this topic came up because it's something that I've been working on for the past couple of years in my agency, around the roles and responsibilities within the modern agency, especially around roles and responsibilities of account and project managers, which we'll spend time on today. And
Hey everyone, this is Brandi Whitaker. I'm an agency project management consultant, as Shelley mentioned. Previous to becoming a consultant, I spent 18 years in the agency world, half of it on account management and the other half in project management roles, as well as working on operations with organizations. So today, Ned and I are able to bring you kind of in the trenches experience and working with the 4A's committee on this topic specifically, and also just perspective from a lot of agencies that I've been working with out in the industry right now. So before we get started, we just want to go through kind of what our topics are going to be today. We're going to kick off with a little bit about why the 4A's chose this topic and some feedback that we're hearing from the 4A's members. Take you through kind of a top level of the essence of the account and project management roles, even though I know a lot of you have them, just how we see those roles at the core working best together, how organizations have been able to implement both disciplines, and then how, with the implementation of those disciplines, how the structure of agencies are changing and how the career paths of the account and project management roles are progressing, and then really talk through some how-to ways that you can think about how you can apply these learnings to your organization. So, Ned, I will kick it to you to kind of get us started here today.
That sounds good. Thank you, Brandi. So, answering that question, why we are here. So, Brandi quickly mentioned that both of us are members of the 4A's Project Management Working Group. And in our sessions, over the years with that group of people, from all types of agencies from across the country, the topic of roles and responsibilities within agencies always comes up, and really especially those roles and responsibilities as it relates to project and account management roles. And that's, like I said, what we're going to focus on today. And I expect that many of you will agree that there are some battles and maybe lack of clarity within our industry, and maybe even within your own agencies about, what are the specific roles and responsibilities between, project management and account. But, first, like I did in the last webinar that some of you partook in, I want to, talk about, how we got to the point we are now. So if you look back at, in agencies before, just call it before digital, I don't want to say that, executing projects was, easy back then before there was digital, but there are generally, if you look at, workflows on things today like, TV and print and direct mail and things like that, there's, way fewer steps involved in creating that type of advertising. And, coming up with a big, great creative idea, in those mediums is never easy. But, it's just that point that with the emergence of digital, the number of steps required to execute projects, really increased. So that before that digital time frame, really, account management, handled all project management and all necessary project coordination type activities, along with doing, the standard client management work. But let's look at, after digital started to come into the picture, and just, ask yourself the question, how many new types of disciplines, were brought into agencies, whether those disciplines were outsourced, whether they were, several disciplines handled by one person. You started to see, deep, analytics. You started to see, working with, technical developers. You started having to work with business analysts. Your IT organizations on the client side, that type of stuff. Those types of interactions, really started to emerge and complicate projects quite significantly when agencies started to, really move into the digital space. So what agencies started to realize is that digital projects required an additional, management skill set that was, really around things like planning, estimating, heavy documentation, management of technical teams. And I think taking from some lessons we learned from, let's call them, pure play digital shops, agencies started to introduce the role of project management into the equation. So you can see, why, based on those decades and decades of, a history of projects being managed by account management, the role of project management into the agencies could, cause some tension. So with that, Brandi, talk to us about, a little bit, what the 4A's, how the 4A's describes project management.
Yeah, I think it's important to just level set that, Ned and I are both part of the 4A's Project Management Committee, and 4A's has recognized project management as a discipline within the agencies, and the way that 4A's defines the role as the discipline of organizing, managing, communicating with resources in such a way that these resources deliver all the work that's required to complete a project within defined scope, quality, timeframes, and cost constraints. And so the presentation that you're hearing today is through the lens of agencies that are recognized that there is a role for account and a role for project management within the agency, regardless necessarily of the size. There still are ways that you can do this. So we just want to kind of level set that's kind of the position that we're coming from today.
Absolutely. And when I am, bringing new project managers into the agency, or, revisiting, roles and responsibilities of project managers, here are the core points that I stress to project managers in the agency world are, first that, you should be, at the center of every project, and getting yourself at the center of every project through doing things like, ensuring the project is effectively planned. Then to me, the most important thing is ensuring effective project communication. And to me, and we'll talk about this much more in depth later, that means both internal and client-side audiences about project communication. High-quality project documentation, up-to-date things like, timelines and resourcing. Making sure if there are issues that you handle timely escalation, and you are bold in doing that. And, working with, account teams and management in doing that. And then, ensure teams understand, what processes that you need to live within. So that's a, pretty standard set of roles and responsibilities for, project managers, I would say, of course within, advertising agencies, but, even if you, look into other industries as well. So that's great, but, so what's the problem that we're talking about? So a way I thought about, describing this problem is, just sharing with everyone, something I've seen in my, various, travels of, hiring project managers and creating job descriptions and thinking about roles and responsibilities. So there is, I would call it a debate within agencies about these roles and responsibilities. And honestly, I think it's how we hire, and I think it's around how we describe these jobs. So what you're looking at on this slide is just a quick snapshot I did, where I went out on LinkedIn and I looked at, various agency project management and account positions, and it was surprising in how many instances, sometimes even within the same companies, granted they were larger organizations, that you would see very similar responsibilities associated with both the PM and account positions. So a lot of times they'll both talk about, things like internal team management. They often talk about, managing the projects, both, internally and being the voice of it to the client. And, sometimes they both talk about, managing client expectations. So, with this bullet point, with this slide, I just wanted to stress that this is something real in the industry, that I think it's incumbent upon all of us to, work hard, not only within our agencies, but to, talk more broadly about this, to make, both of these roles, much more well-defined within the advertising industry as a whole. So with that, we're going to jump to our first poll question, and Shelley will help us with that. But the question is, so does your agency currently have both account management and project management roles? And then, just answer as appropriate.
Great. So the poll has been launched, and I already see people sending in their answers, which is fantastic. We have more than 50%. Oh, now 67%. Now 70% participating. So I'll give everyone a couple seconds to fill out their answer. Again, if you're in a big group, I know there's a couple conference rooms. Try to do a show of hands to see what the consensus is of what you guys feel like the answer is for your teams and your agency. So a couple more seconds here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, 1. All right, let's see what the results are, Ned and Brandi. So we had 75% say yes, and we work well together. Fantastic. And 25% say yes, but it is new, and we are figuring it out.
Okay, great. So that's good to hear that we have a nice blend of groups, and even for those that are doing it great and working well together, I think we have some good points of things that are always good to take an assessment to figure out how your agency can continue to evolve along the way. So we'll talk a little bit next about when it works best and how we have seen agencies that have implemented both of the disciplines where the two roles really coexist together, and how some of that can be structured and how we see success with that. So Ned, if you want to move on. Really to start, I think it's important to point out that with everything that goes on in the advertising agency today for our client's business, it really takes an intense business knowledge of the client's business as well as the operations that go behind that. So the way we see these roles working best together is really encompassed in this visual of the yin and yang. They should not be independent of one another. They should have a good relationship and always ebbing and flowing together, with the guidance that one has a business focus and one has an operational focus. So we'll talk about that a little bit as we go into this section, but by having focus areas, or perhaps the essence of the roles and the individuals within those roles really understanding that, it allows them to focus on their specialty areas and still work collaboratively as a team. So this next slide is somewhat of a visual. I mean, I could have listed all these things out of what is the essence of the two roles, and the left side represents the account side and the right side represents the project management side. And this is not inclusive of everything, but I think it's nice to see when you rank the things that you want the team members to prioritize, they show up differently. While there are some overlaps, the account side really, a lot of feedback from the agencies that we work with in 4A say we want them to understand the client's business and be in charge of the client's business, understand the contracts, the scope, what are we doing for them, and make sure that the agency is being as strategic as possible in whatever it is we're delivering, whether that be creative, media, analytics, and really own that part of things. While the PM side is really at the core focused on the delivery. What do they need to do to get the thing created that we are creating? How can they run the orchestration of schedules so that all the resources internally have the time they need to work on the creation, the clients have the time they need, and really keeping that a well-oiled machine. So this is just a snapshot of the essence. And kind of to take that a step further, Ned, if you want to go ahead and flip to the next slide, we've kind of encompassed these two roles in this framework here. We see that the account management essence to be the client advocate. But to start, I want to point out that doesn't mean that they are not responsible for helping elevate work for the agency and that they do everything the client says. It just means that they are the owner and the one that understands the client's business and industry and competition the most. They are really on the hook for developing the strong working relationships they need, which helps them to understand how to be successful for the client and how to help the agency sell great work to the client through the relationship that they have. Having the time to have the relationships helps to build trust with the clients, which helps the agency to get the work that they want out of it, or to sell the work that they want. Really focusing on the strategic direction of the account, the client's business, and making sure that all the work that is coming out is on brand and achieves the client's goals. I mean, we are creating work, but it all needs to ladder up to something, which by owning that part of the relationship and having the time to do that, it really helps them to manage the client's relationship and help break down roadblocks for if the client's having it in their business or if the agency's having it, to meet the client demand. So that's kind of the definition of how we see the account management role being the client advocate, where we really put the essence of the project management role as the agency advocate. In the historical role of project management coming from traffic, there can be an assumption and sometimes an issue with people believing that the project management role only protects the creative part of the agency. And we want to make sure that really has expanded beyond that, so people understand that's not how we're viewing this. We really are viewing it that the project manager can really be the agency advocate, really understanding who all you have in the agency, what are their capabilities, where the capabilities are internally, where you need to have partners to bring in so that you can get the work created. So having a strong understanding and relationship with all the disciplines so that you know when to bring someone in, when to tap them and give them an update. So really driving the tactical production of the projects or the programs and the campaigns that are going on. And that's in partnership with the account team. That's not separate. Again, back to the yin and yang, building that relationship to have the trust from your account team that you can handle this side of the equation is really important. The project management team we see as managing the systems and the tools that contribute to the success of the project. So if you have certain ways certain teams are communicating or documenting or sending updates or scheduling, they really kind of own that part of it. And helping to ensure that the work is on budget, on time, and in the quality. And that's a balance of just the success of any project, or working in partnership with account management. And also the ability to be client-facing and relied upon by the whole team. So this is kind of a tension point in the industry, is are your project managements client-facing? Are they not? And we say they certainly can be and should be in many cases. If you can start to transfer some of that ownership to someone that can really focus on running the project, and your clients know that's their role, it's okay to shift to that, even if you haven't done that. So again, kind of the bottom line, we are framing it as the client advocate and the agency advocate, and how those two roles can work closely together. The next slide is just a really quick snapshot to show how agencies really started to dig into this. And it takes some homework to do this. There are some shared responsibilities that the two groups are going to connect on and be in charge of. But if you start to pair off responsibilities and core responsibilities, it can really help alleviate the burden of all the things that have been tasked to the account management team over time. And that can be a hard thing to let go, which is why clarifying roles and responsibilities and building the trust within the team is important. So this is a starter list to show how over time account management started to transfer some of the resourcing and who was going to work on things, or managing some of the scope and the hours, whereas they had always done that before, or talking on behalf of the project instead of them always being the one that managed the project logistics. So this is a starter list. The list goes on. It just shows you how you really have to frame up what is each person doing and which lane does it make sense so that they can work best together. So with this, that has caused some structure changes and some organizational changes. And so we want to talk you through how we have seen that happening in the agencies so far, and just some scenarios. And really one of the kickoff points here is as some of these roles have shifted, we have noticed that agencies have had to take a step back and answer a couple of things for themselves. Maybe they've added the project management role, but didn't do the homework of defining where that role is going to live within the organization. Back to my point about it was somewhat rooted in the original traffic role, which typically reported in through creative, but that's not necessarily what is the most successful for the organizations now, because it kind of serves one master. And same thing as if this role lives in account management. So doing some due diligence to figure out exactly where the role lives, which the 4As recommends in a neutral place, either coming through an operations role or somewhere where everyone is empowered to be able to work with the other disciplines. And the other thing is, what does the career progression of this project management team look like? The traditional role of traffic, it didn't have a lot of levels in it. And so they really had to define what that looks like for the organization. And aside from the agency, just the industry right now in the last 3 to 5 years has had to define this, because right now the millennial workforce, they are the largest group in our workforce, and they have really shaped how organizations have to define their structures, because they want to know what their path is. And so it's really important that agencies can define this for them so they can retain this talent, because a lot of the millennials in this coming into the industry now, they have a lot of this experience coming from digital agencies. And so it's important that you're able to define their path for them. So taking a step back to kind of, Ned was talking about this earlier, traditionally roles and responsibilities in terms of how projects move through the agency. Teams were staffed from a project coordination standpoint on the account side with multiple levels, and then responsibilities have typically been assigned out by levels. So account coordinators do certain things, account executives do other things, and it moves up from there, and they're divvied up. And really what we have seen in the last 5 years really is a modern staffing approach where agencies are really looking at what is right for the work that is coming in, and not treating all the work the same. So not if you had, with this, and this is a scalable thought here. So it could be if you have a large account, which you have a ton of account people, and parallel that to a smaller account with a few account people. What is the right blend? And we've seen them stripping out multiple layers of account people and really shifting percentage of time over to more of a project manager, more of a media planner if that's what's needed, more of a digital production specialist, people that can contribute more time, and the shift of the percentage of time has changed. I would say pretty dramatically, and people have seen success with this, so that you don't have multiple people responsible for the project coordination activities, and you have fewer people that can be on the same page and are leading it based on their skill set. And this isn't to say that it's something was wrong with the account side. It's just it allowed there to be a division of responsibilities and divide and conquer, and it also allowed it really started to alleviate the account teams being responsible for everything, and they themselves felt like sometimes they were a bottleneck of work moving through the agency, and having a partner that can help move the work while they are, again, with the client, focusing on the client relationship, focusing on how they're building out more business for their clients, and help to balance that. Now, I don't know if you have anything else to add there before you go into the next setup.
No, well stated, Brandi. And just from my own experience, I've seen this type of transition happen, and one point I would like to stress is thinking about it's really important for organizations to think about where that project management role sits in the organization. So we'll talk about that a little bit more, but a key to-do item I think for everyone is asking, where does it live? What type of authority does it have? And in the next part of this conversation, I want to share with you a different type of team configuration that I've seen with project management and account teams. And this configuration was designed to handle a pretty large piece of digital business that really manages dozens of projects per year. And when I say projects in this aspect, I mean things like web development projects or developing new brand content to put online. And then literally hundreds, if not thousands, of what I will call maintenance tasks per year. So managing .com presence, managing online advertising, et cetera, et cetera. So imagine say hundreds of pieces of work coming into the organization through several clients. And what you'll see here is that in this setup, that account team is small. Just a couple of people, and this is a multi-million-dollar piece of business that we're talking about here. But the roles and responsibilities of those account people could be truly focused on things like working and developing those annual plans, and focuses putting their focus on mainly on new and important strategic work, because everyone will understand this. With that type of volume, there is going to be repeatable work. There's going to be so much that you need people whose job it is to focus on the execution of those projects. So in this type of model, we are allowing the account people to ensure that be focused to ensure that work is meeting clients' expectation and they're maintaining insight into the overall ongoing budget. And it's supporting that group of, and those account people in this type of setup, which should be pretty senior folks, obviously, people who have a lot of experience, who are able at winning and negotiating multi-million-dollar pieces of business. They have a key support person in this type of setup. What I call a program management role. So tactical insight into all the incoming and active projects. Managing things like PM resourcing and staffing and training and mentoring that team. Insight and maintenance into the overall and ongoing portfolio planning. So what projects are coming in, what's the priority of those things? And then, being, certainly a client-facing voice with the ability to do portfolio level reporting. And that's a small core team of people who is largely managing, that large piece of business. But to the right-hand side of the slide, you will see that there, we've configured, small teams of project managers who are organized based on the types of work that they do, related to that account. So, a couple of, what I would call, senior, technical, project managers who are managing, maybe, a dozen or so, relatively complicated web development projects per year. And maybe those folks are using, some of the techniques that we talked about in the last webinar, around, agile techniques. But then there is, a group of, folks who are junior project managers who are handling, really high volumes of website and, paid advertising, updates, maintenance, and tasks throughout the year. And then, in addition, a group of, mid to maybe senior level project managers who are, developing projects that are around, bringing new brand content online. So they're not necessarily highly complicated technical projects, but they are complicated from the perspective of, your client is spending large amounts of money on, developing new brand content. So this is a model that I've seen, and this model, happened after a shift from, an organization that was very, heavily weighted to the account side. And, what had, happened is that, the level of detail that needed to be, tracked, related to each of these, hundreds of projects that were coming in, was something, honestly, that, some of the people were not necessarily, passionate about managing that level of detail and, wanted more ability to, help manage the client relationship. So what was said is that, hey, let's take the aspects of, managing these hundreds of projects, really seriously with people whose job it is to focus on the tactical detail of, executing the work on behalf of clients and on behalf of, honestly, the account team in this scenario. So what this model has ended up to be is a relatively small account team that manages a large client portfolio, but there's a team of trusted project managers to execute the work. So this is a model that cannot be switched overnight. So with that, let's talk about how an agency could get to something like that. So just reminding ourselves what maybe a common agency career path could look like. And the point of this slide is agencies need to treat project management as a career path. Okay, and here's one way to think about doing that. A common agency career path has been and Brandi mentioned it before, people entering the organization through a traffic organization, then going into roles like an assistant account executive, account director, for example. And then what we've seen over the so maybe last decade is the insertion somewhere in that career progression of the project management role, where the career progression wasn't clear, and oftentimes at odds with the account people who have been doing project management like activities from the day they've been within that agency. So what I propose is what I'd say a modern approach to a career path within the agency, because one of the key points I always like to make when I'm having this conversation with people is that some of the definitely the best account people that I have worked with are those who clearly know what it takes to manage projects, and a lot of times they have been project managers in the past, but they've chosen a different path. So, but how do you ensure people within your agency who are responsible for managing projects and think about that term project management as a career path? How do you ensure that they are doing that right on behalf of your clients? Well, I think one way to do it is start an entry point into your agency with a junior project management role, where those people and when they're hired, obviously, they're talked to in a way that says, this is a way that we're going to help you grow in your profession within advertising. So they enter the agency and they're given training on the basics of project management, and they are doing work that is maintenance and sustainment type work. Okay, then as they can grow in their project management career, the level of complexity of the projects they manage obviously increases. Okay, but then I think there's a fork in the road for people. I think there is a point that when people have proven their skills at managing projects, managing the internal workings of an agency, being able to professionally share the health and status of a project in a client-facing environment. I think there's a lot of people in the industry who see a fork in the road, and I propose that you make that a blatant fork in the road within your organization, to say, yeah, there are some people who are who are much more strategic minded and want to take that strategic minded client management path. But then there are also people who, and I'm an example of this, that I decided at a certain point in my career that I really liked the project management path, and that's the way I wanted to go. I liked the tactical management of teams, but as I became more senior within organizations, I also made sure that I could be a strong client-facing voice in my representation and management of projects. And then, if people are given that opportunity to make that choice, the most important thing about that fork in the road is, no matter whichever path they take, that they have a strong foundation in how to manage a project, and how to ensure that they're representing the project, health, the next steps in the project, any risks in the project, appropriately to clients. They have a solid foundation and they have had solid training to get to that point.
Yeah, and I'm like Ned. I did start out on the account management side and shifted into the project management side because that was kind of a more natural fit for me. So I would point out that, while Ned has experienced this with his organization, we were really surprised and interested to hear that there's a lot of agencies that have adjusted to this model, and that they really are taking a look at the talent that they have internally and who they need, and putting their talent in the right lane for what the agency needs. And that was something that we heard last year and something that we continue to hear, but it's really a big structure shift. And again, I heard from one organization that's a pretty large one that they went from having 30% project managers to 70% account people, to flipping that whole ratio to having 25% account people and 70% project managers now. So that just lets you know that agencies are finding this to be of value. And I think an important thing to point out is talent excels when they're in the place that they already excel in, so you find sometimes that people are stuck in roles that really aren't right for their skill set. And so the agency and organizations aren't really getting from the employees what they could if the people were very passionate about the lanes that they're working in right now. So taking a close look at, who you need in your account management lane and who is really has the strategic minded approach to develop the relationship versus who is really excelling at running the organization of the projects is, some homework that you'll hear us talk about in a second, but we think is really important for you to do. Even if you have these roles and you think you have it set up right, we really think it's a good audit to peek under the hood and take a look. So actually, it will shift us into our next poll question. We are curious to hear from you. If any of your agencies have shifted this model of more PM time and less accounts, similar to what Ned just talked about. Shelley, if you want to launch that poll. Shelley, can you hear me?
I can. Sorry, guys. I'm having a slight tech problem. Bear with me.
No problem.
Launching
One of the
right now.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, so asking if any of your organizations have shifted the model of increasing the percentage of PM time or PM roles and narrowing down less of the account roles. Answers are yes, and it's working well. We are currently thinking about it. No, we have not done that.
Great, so everyone was so quick. We have already about 78%, which is fantastic. Thank you guys so much again for participating. I'll leave the poll open for a couple more seconds for those that are still deciding what their answer is. Okay, my countdown is beginning. We're going to close the poll in 3, 2, and 1. All right, let's see what the results were. So we had 25% saying yes, and it is working well. 25% say we are thinking about it, and 50% say no.
Got it. Okay.
Perfect. And yeah. One more point on this topic. One of the things I do whenever I can get a chance is to talk to university programs that have advertising programs, and the role of project management within advertising agencies is really nowhere to be found in university curriculum, for people who are interested to go into advertising. So that obviously sets up one of the basic things that sets up this challenge that agencies still face is that oftentimes it's the first time people going into advertising have even heard of the role of project management is when they step into an agency. So there's a lot of work to do on this topic, but we're progressing there, and your feedback on this poll is, I think, telling and interesting. So thank you.
Yeah, Ned, I'm still seeing the poll on screen.
Yeah. Bear with me one second.
So part of our last section that we want to talk you through is really some practical how-tos, how to think about this in the lens of how your organization is currently structured, things that you can really take back to other team members to do some homework and assess if there are some shifts that you want to make. So we'll kind of go into that section. And as we get started, something to set this section up is just this quote around collaboration and why we're talking about these things as it relates to account and project management is rooted in the sense that, really these two roles are the roles that team members reach out to, that they want, they view these roles as the roles that know what needs to be happening, the relationship with the client, what's going on. So all the other team members are always naturally kind of coming back to the account and project manager to understand, how the team needs to be focusing their time and facilitating. So just as these two groups are collaborating better together, it really helps the whole team. So this is just a quick, definition of that. Collaboration improves when the roles of individual team members are clearly defined and well understood. In fact, when individuals feel their role is bounded in ways that allow them to do a significant portion of their work independently, without such clarity, team members are likely to waste energy negotiating roles or protecting their turf rather than focusing on the task, which is ultimately the work product that we're trying to get out for our clients. So we're going to do a little bit of a different exercise here. So if you have a scratch sheet of paper nearby, I think you should do this on your own, because it's going to be hard to do as a consensus, but just kind of jot down, yeses or nos for this as we talk through. And I think this will be a great follow-up item for everyone. But we really encourage you to have a very honest audit with your organization. Really dig into some questions to not just have a group of people decide how they think your teams are working, but really ask the individuals that are doing the work how things are going. So here's a few questions. We're going to do this exercise, just make some scratch notes. But the audit checklist: do you find out too late that jobs are not going to be completed on time? Are strategic and executional projects staffed the same way? Do you feel like there is confusion on who is doing what on the team? Are agency approvals squeezed or being missed before the client sees the work? Is morale on the team bad? Is the work not at the quality you want or expect? So again, that should have been a quick answer, even though we encourage you to go back and have a whole work session on this with your teams. But Shelley, we're going to actually launch to the next poll. We'd love to hear if on your answers, did you answer yes to any of these? Yes to most of them, only a few, or none?
Great. So no tech glitches this time. The poll is launched. So take a few minutes to submit your answer. This one is very quick. We already have almost 80%, which is awesome. So just a couple more seconds for people. All right. We jumped to 89%. Great. I'm going to go ahead and close the poll in 3, 2, and 1. So let's see the results for this one. So did you answer yes to any of these? So 25% said yes, most of them, and 75% say only a few.
Okay. Well, I think kind of our answer here is if you answered yes to most of these things, it's really time to do some roles and responsibility exercises among these two groups. Again, we kind of started this point and we'll close it here, that the account management group, regardless if you have project management in your organization as a discipline right now or not, these two roles together are really viewed as the hub of the work on a client's business. So if these groups are not working well together, haven't defined the communication structure and roles and responsibilities, it will trickle out to the team, and there will be inefficiency in time, inefficiency in effort of work. And so it's really an important exercise to go through and help keep all your teams on track. So that's one of our recommendations from a how-to standpoint. And we'll kind of move into just some closing, and then we'll go into some Q&A of some other things that we think are really important for you to ask yourselves. I mean, you all are on this call. You obviously have an interest in what the 4As and the agencies are putting forth in the industry. So here's kind of a recap of some of the follow-up items that you can take back. Is first, take a look at your agency job descriptions. Look at your account management roles, look at them by levels, look at the project management, make sure that you have job descriptions for these roles, and that really will help your internal employees right now to take a look at what your expectations are. And then take an honest look at your teams and see if they're performing in the expectations that you've put forth. Next would be talk about your team configurations and what's the right blend of work to the team members. We talked a little bit about, some work is more strategic, some is more executional. So really look at how many people you have in the roles based on the work that you have. And then audit if your account team members, if you have both disciplines, or even if you only have one and you're looking to go into project management, audit what the account team members are doing. Are they really performing PM activities the majority of their day? And then ask yourself if that's right. Is that what you want them spending their time on? Do you need them to be focusing on the client's business and, gaining more business from the client, or understanding the relationship more? Really take some time to spend it with that, and then decide the right staffing approach for your agency. And if you ultimately are looking to adjust and bring in new roles or shift people into other roles out of what they're in right now, make a rollout plan for this. This will be, it's obviously change management, and it's going to be really important that if you are making shifts and you're placing people in different lanes that they haven't been in before, they know why. They know that it's because it's where their skill sets lie, and they know where it's going to take them. But making those changes without giving the why and helping them understand definitely puts employees in a limbo and doesn't allow them to excel there.
And then define career paths for both roles. There are people who inherently want to be, account managers and excel at that type of work, but there are also people who inherently want to be project managers. And they oftentimes, I've found the people with those skill sets at different agencies, unfortunately, don't even see that as a career path. So define both the career paths for both of these types of, disciplines within your agency, to not only improve the way that you can attract talent, but retain talent. Of course that goes back to roles and responsibilities, but it also ensures that there's a place for people with both of those, whichever passion they have, there's a path that they can follow. And then another one I really like to stress is that when you're hiring project managers, hire people who you see as client-facing leaders that can demonstrate real ownership. That's not to say that, in any of the, setups that we've been talking about, that, project managers are, overall replacing the roles of account managers. But in order to, achieve sort of a team configuration that I talked about, where there is, account managers who can really focus on, winning new business, the strategic, viewpoint of the client, there needs to be, a trusted set of project managers who, account managers and, general management within the agency can have faith in those project managers to properly, portray and manage the project in a client-facing environment. So hire that way. And then you really got to define how much support you need on projects at the beginning. And when we talk about that, think about which projects are the most important, the most strategic, sort of the deepest thinking project versus the projects that are maybe repeatable, or pretty standard in the way they need to be executed. And ask yourselves the question, are the roles that are in charge of managing those projects, are they account management roles, or are they project management roles? And when you do that assessment of your broad list of projects, there oftentimes are a lot of projects that agencies realize, that are executional, that are repeatable, and if there are, people who are, well-spoken individuals who are happy to, do repeatable projects, it's great to have those people, take complete ownership of those things, those project managers to take complete ownership of those executional projects and be the voice of those in front of the clients. And agency, management needs to, learn how to be okay with that. And then, as Brandi and I always say in these conversations is no matter what, an agency does in terms of reconfiguring themselves to be more efficient, make sure you're talking to your clients about, any types of changes you're making to, roles and responsibilities or workflow, because, clients, want communication to be seamless, and you've got to, make sure that you're not making, changes to the way is set up without briefing clients and telling them what the benefits to them will be. Okay, so those are a few of the practical how-tos and takeaways we wanted you guys to keep with you and discuss. And with that, we can hand it back over to Shelley to help us get in a few questions from you guys.
All right. So we've entered into the Q&A portion of our webinar, and I see questions are already coming in, which is amazing to see. But just a friendly reminder for those that may have a question that don't remember how to send it in your go-to panel, there is a question box. And this is where you can type in any question that you have, hit submit. It's almost like a chat. And I will read your question out to Ned and Brandi to give you guys some helpful answers. So again, feel free to send us those questions at any point now, since we are in our Q&A portion. So Ned and Brandi, a question just came in. How many PMs would you suggest an agency of 150 people with 15 to 20 million in gross income should have?
Yeah, that's a good question. You could. I probably to properly understand that, I would want to know what the the account management team setup looks like. But I mean, what I am doing, what I'm pushing for in my agency is project management roles that go from senior to junior levels, and then pushing for account, honestly, slightly fewer account roles, but those account roles are much more senior people. So I know that doesn't answer your question precisely, but
Yeah,
Brandi,
I think it's hard to answer that, but I was going to say, at the end of this presentation, you have our contact information, so feel free to follow up with us and we can answer on email, because I would want to know how many different client teams are comprised of those 100 people, and how that 15 million breakout is by client team, because that obviously makes a different structure based on how to service the client. So I don't think, I guess the quick answer is it's not a percentage off the top of people. It's probably a makeup of the number of client teams and then the level of scope that you have and then the type of work for that. So whoever asked that question, feel free to follow up with us on email. We'll be glad to connect back on that.
Great. Another question just came in. How do you guarantee a talent pipeline into account management if you don't have an AC, AE, account supervisor, AD upward structure?
You say AC at the start of that?
Yeah, I think the question is around how do you make sure you have a solid pipeline of more senior account people if they haven't come up through the ranks of assistant account executive and things like that. So in my take on that is what you need to do in hiring your junior people is you need to talk to them about the career path that they're going to take, and that the agency believes that growing our best account people means ensuring that first they have a solid background in how to get the work done and how to manage projects. And then that also a key part of doing that is setting that structure up in a way that same with those more junior type account roles, that, more junior type project management roles are, given the opportunity to be the voice of, smaller projects to clients. But the key to it is, making sure that, your junior employees have, a training in strong project management discipline, but also allow them to know, that at the right point in their career, at your agency, there is that fork in the road that we talked about. You've proven yourself as a strong project manager. You have, desires to be, more strategic thinking around management of client. You know how to manage a project. Now, your next career, step is going to be down that account path. So, I mean, one of the things I say is some of the best account people that I work with are ex-project managers.
Yeah, or could be vice versa, depending on if they started out in project management. Yeah, a follow-up to that, I would say is we've heard multiple agencies, and I've been in this place a lot, say that especially when you have a stack of account people on a team, often the director and supervisor will say, well, I don't have time to train the assistant AE. So they kind of give them the coordination task and the things. So what ends up happening is they're kind of circling around the project manager, and they're not really getting trained. The project manager's training them, and really that's not an efficient use of time for the organization at all, because you're having to backtrack on things. So, bringing someone in the sense of junior level people really just need to learn all the facets of moving work through the organization, and then they start to naturally round out their soft skills and where they're going to fit best along the way. But I mean, from a financial standpoint and a profitability standpoint, agencies have found success of being able to collapse that role and not have to have assistant AEs and project managers. They're kind of moving it into one role and training people up in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, we see, many cases of, the role of assistant account executive not existing anymore in agencies, because it's, a lot of junior project management like activities, but very often without the, training necessary to do that job effectively.
Yeah, and a question that I've had associated with that, based back to the point about responsibilities at levels, is a lot of people say, well, our assistant account coordinators and AEs, they're the ones that really help our billing and our billing management. But back to the slide, in terms of digital, I mean, a lot of large teams or agencies have put, budget analysts and stuff onto teams, so that they're really helping to round out how the reporting looks on the team and handling some of the billing coordination and shifting some of that into more of an accounting and financial analyst role as well. So, you can take and divide up the responsibilities and look at them in different ways in terms of how they supported the team.
It is a great question. I've heard it multiple times before, and there's not an easy answer to it. But again, it's about talking, selling that career path.
Okay, we have another question. I know we are at 2:00. Do you guys have time to stick around for a few more minutes?
Yep, I'm okay. Yeah.
Okay,
great. Thank you.
And just a quick reminder for anyone that needs to drop off, if you want access to this deck, you just need to fill out a survey that comes out right after this webinar. It'll take you 2 minutes tops, but once you fill it out, you'll get a link to the PDF. Okay, our next question. We're moving towards the model of staffing more PMs and fewer junior level account people. But the more senior account people are disappointed about not having a team of more junior people to manage. Thoughts on how to handle that?
So they like the aspect of managing team members and are losing that mentoring and development role. I think as we have seen some of the shift of the agencies do this, the senior account team member really takes on a development and mentor role of the whole team in a way. So they're not just responsible for shaping the few account people underneath them. They're really orchestrating that the team together is moving in a direction that works for the client. So how do they, round out the creative team that's on it, and presentations, and how does the project manager support the team in a way that works best for the team? Now, do you have anything add to that?
Yeah, that's a great way to answer that question. that more senior account folks should, be striving to be, sort of an overall, mentor to the entire team, really, working closely with strategy, helping, bring people, within the strategy organization, closer to, client goals and objectives and things like that. I have expressed that. I have heard that, issue in my career as well, that, when we have, made some of these changes that, account people don't have the, those mentoring, opportunities. One thing that, I also, work to do is to the best of our ability, make sure these cross-discipline groups of people that are on a single piece of business, this sounds, simple and silly, but are sitting in the same location, or, talking, if they're remote workers, talking at the same time every day. And there are, opportunities for more senior account people to, give guidance to project managers that have been assigned to their team. And the other thing I say is that it's generally the account person's role to, define the priorities of what the team works on, and that, through sort of a matrix reporting organization, the so the account, manager is defining the priorities of the projects that the team works on, and then there is a project manager, discipline lead who is, assessing the progression of that junior project manager's career. So there is, while it might not be reporting on paper, there still is plenty of opportunity to, influence and train, if the team is configured in the right way, both, physically or remotely, and in a matrix type setup in the organization.
Okay, great. I don't think any more questions came in, so I think that was a fantastic job. Thank you guys for participating in those questions. Hopefully you guys found them really useful, and if you guys do want some more information, a deeper dive, you can definitely reach out to our thought leaders, Ned and Brandi. You'll see their contact information on the screen here. If you need help connecting with them, having issues, let me know. I'm happy to connect them. But again, feel free to reach out. They are here as thought leaders to help you along the way. So again, the friendly reminder of the survey, we do really greatly appreciate the feedback. It'll take you 2 minutes tops, and that is exactly how you can access this PDF. This is, again, a 4-part series, Evolution of Project Management. This is unfortunately Ned and Brandi's last session, but we do have one more fantastic session coming up on the 2nd, Connecting Producers with Finance. And if you missed any of the past sessions, reach out to us at webinar@aaaa.org. We're happy to let you know how to get access because it is still available. Thank you so much, Ned and Brandi. It was a pleasure having you guys back here again with us. An amazing webinar today.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thanks, guys. And thank you, everyone who took out an hour of your day. We really appreciate it. And we hope to see you guys all here back in the webinar space very soon. All right. Thanks, guys. Take care.
You too. Bye.